Hello YouTube, this is Omagent here with my first ever video regarding the new Wargame Airland Battles RTS game. Now this is the second beta of the game and this is my third match. Now what I'm going to do in this series is go through every single nation in Airland Battle, even ones I don't normally play, especially on NATO. And I'm going to go through every of the predetermined decks that they give you in the beta, go over it to explain what the deck itself is useful for in a game, and just talk about the game in general. So this is the first game, and I'm going to start off with my old favourites, the Soviet Union. I'm going to be trialing their deck out first. Now this is the only map available in the beta, and the first thing you'll notice if you've seen a lot of my Wargame European Escalation games is that the point zones are a lot bigger. As you can see, look, Kjartan's 6, Ivan's 4, Michael 4, and this is just the side of the map. There's a big 10 one in the middle. Now here's the first strike of the match, one of the new jets of the game, swatted down, giving us 130 point lead right off the bat. That's lovely. Jets, as you can probably imagine, by their nature are almost impossible to hit by anything except for dedicated anti-aircraft systems like my favourite Tunguskas, or the Cubs, or the Chaparrals, anything like that. So pretty much, unless your enemy has a good anti-aircraft defense, they can just tear the ground units apart. However, they're quite expensive, so you don't really want to lose them. So if they do have a good anti-aircraft defense, yeah, it's a bad position to be in, let's put it that way. So here we go, here are the first infantry units of the game. This is the Motostrelki, equipped in their BMP-2s. Then Soviet deck is actually very restricted in terms of what you have, and compared to what I imagine the other Warsaw Pact decks are going to be like, it's a very high tech. The cheapest tank you can field is the T-64B, everything else is just T-80s. Recon, you've pretty much only got the Mi-8 and the BRM-1. Helicopters, you've only got the Havoc and the Ka-50, which is a new addition to the game, and it's jets. The Soviet Union can only field 3 jets in one game, which is quite a small amount, and they're all very expensive ones. So pretty much imagine this as a sort of high-tech, high-powered, but high-cost side of the Warsaw Pact, I'd say. And here's a little trick I like, is that this little recon unit, you put it up on the hill, they rarely spot it, and it can just look over this area and you can spot what is in it. Also, you might notice that this is live gameplay, it isn't recorded in replay mode. The beta doesn't have it, so I just record all my games and I'll commentate over whatever I deem is worthy of your attention and time. So as you can see, the Motostrelki have fended off the Canadian rifle units, and I spot a command vehicle. This is commanding the centre one, which is worth 10 points, so if I can knock this out, it's a good priority. Also, there's a few enemy mortars. As a general rule, artillery is very accurate in this game over previous ones, so keep an eye out for that. So pretty much this is just some short-sightedness on their part, leaving their command vehicle really exposed. So I guess send my recon unit in to destroy it. It's not very powerful, it's only got a KP-VT machine gun, but it'll finish off the CV eventually. Also, another drawback of the Soviet Union in the beta is it only has 2 artillery guns it can field, and I don't mean 2 varieties, just 2 guns. The Matista S, like high-tech, super advanced artillery, however, to compromise for this, they're all very experienced, and they can just, well, bring the pain, let's put it that way. Their fire is just super accurate. So the command vehicle's down, so I move my recon to knock out their mortars. I'm also, when my artillery gets into position, I'm going to start raining down on their rear, hoping we can like break their center point here, which will give us an economic advantage over them. There's another new unit there, the BMP-T. It's sort of like a BMP, but it doesn't seem to have an ATKM. It's just got a lot of sort of auto cannons and machine guns and frag grenade launchers. I think there's a variant of the BMP-1 that was similar to that, but I think it's just like a more expensive but better version of that. 45 points for it, and quite a nice little unit. So as you can see, I'm fielding a lot of T-64Bs because I like my cheap ATKM platform tanks, and that's the cheapest I can field really at this point. But you know, they're still very good tanks. As you can see, Spetsnaz Motostrelki, just a heads up, the Spetsnaz only come in keeps. They don't have any armoured transports you can deploy them in the beta stage. So, you know, they're transporting valuable infantry in paper thin transports, pretty much. Also, Gets seem to be better at evading even high-tech missiles than helicopters. So when the enemy gear flying gets over the place, your anti-aircraft defenses can run out of missiles very fast, I've noticed. And when they're out of missiles, the enemy will definitely take advantage of this. So as you can see up here, my Yukon vehicle must have strayed too close or ran into some of their reinforcement tanks, and now we've lost our rear position on the tabletop of the map. However, we seem to be doing very well. We're pushing up towards this town, and this is a very hard fought area, because, well, Michael, of the 3 times I've played this map, I've always ended up fighting in and around Michael, and it's quite a tricky spot to take. There's a lot of hills that they can put defensive stuff in. Obviously it's a town, so taking it can be annoying. As you can see, my tanks have moved up to the other side. The toes took one out, but they were close enough to use their cannons. As you can see, I was trying to advance my motor strelky up to secure the woods around Michael, but they've got a Leopard C1, which I believe is a Canadian tank, so I had to retreat the motor strelky, because they would get torn apart by it. Hoping my artillery can finish it off. What else is there to say? So yeah, infantry, you can deploy Conkers, motor strelky, Spetsnaz, and Sappery, and that's your limit on infantry. Also, the new sort of experience system, it isn't like in European Escalation, where you could like set how much experience you wanted them to have, with more experience costing more. I think how it works is, obviously it's a beta, so I can't really be sure, but what it looks like is that you predetermine their experience, so all units that you bring in will be a set experience. Like, I think it goes rookie, trained, hardened, expert, maybe veteran after that. I'm not sure how it works, and I think it might also affect availability. As you can see, they're bringing in a lot of Gets, but I've got a lot of Tunguskas and Cubs that are sort of doing damage. Even if you can't down a Get, the more damage you do to it, the longer it takes for them to refield it, and you always want Gets being here. So I've pushed my Spetsnaz forward. Thankfully the town wasn't secured by any infantry, otherwise they'd have probably been torn apart by the entrenched infantry, and now they can just pick off a few anti-aircraft defences around the city. Also, just that the Soviet Union's limited to Tunguskas and Cubs for its missile defence. So yeah, so it's just sort of like emphasising the whole high-end, high-cost but high-power nature of the Soviet forces in the beta deck. So as you can see up here, I'm pushing my tanks into the rear, trying to take this plateau area. It will give me a good position on Michael. A tow was retreating, so it couldn't fire at the tank, so it finished it off quite quickly. Unfortunately, it's fighting 2 Centurion Mark IIs, which look like they're pretty good tanks. Also, there's the AA launcher up there. I'm trying to position my artillery to take it out, because obviously when I'm playing Soviet Union, I can't really field any of my Jets because they're too, I guess you could say, valuable to risk if the enemy has anti-aircraft defense in the area, because I can only field 3. One air superiority Su-27 and 2 ground attack aircraft Su-25s. Both good planes, but I think they're like 190, 100 and 200 a piece. So you don't see me using that many Jets, because these things are valuable. So as you can see, the tow sort of retreated to that road, but he's being defended by the constant stream of reinforcements into the centre objective. So I can't really tell if my motor strelky will have a gap, because obviously if they get alone with the tow, they can wipe it out no problem. But if they get caught with something too powerful driving close to them, it's not good. Also, the motor strelky are very expensive in this, because they come with a quite advanced BMP 2, so they're £50 a piece, which is quite expensive for infantry when you think about it. So as you can see, they get spotted by this passing infantry transport, but it's not actually doing anything. And I'm afraid that if they like hit it and a warning message flashes up, their cover will be blown, so I sent them in to attack. Elsewhere, I'm bringing in more motor strelky to take the town, because it looks like there's mostly vehicles defending it, not infantry. Elsewhere, I'm just bringing in more T-64s to try and take the plateau. I'm focusing mainly on the left. At this point, NATO has actually secured a points lead of 2,000 points to 1,655. Who's got the most score? Looks like I have. Like quite a lot. Was it? Yep, I'm definitely carrying the team at this point. Now that I look at the score, NATO's quite balanced overall, but I seem to be carrying Warsaw Pact. But that's okay, because I'm fighting in quite a narrow part of the map, and I think it's one of the easiest maps to be attacking. This is where I like to be. You have much wider areas. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to do is put a stranglehold on Michael and just surround us. So yeah, basically my strategy is to take a stranglehold on Michael, because it's a 4-point zone and a reinforcement zone, so take that, and then that can fuel our attack on their rear deployment. Also, another tip on get mechanics: jets can only be brought in when you have at least one of your rear deployment zones. So if you can cut off the enemy ones, they don't get any jets, and that's definitely one way to win a fight. So as you can see, various forces are being brought in, but now I've got some of the BMPs close enough to their spawn roads, they can unleash a torrent of ATKMs to thin their ranks before they get into the proper fight. I've also brought an Mi-9 reconnaissance helicopter. My theory is I can use it to safely scout the centre objective for artillery volleys compared to a ground unit. They might not have a good enough anti-aircraft defence to their rear. There's slim pickings there, but it looks like that's the command vehicle. At this point I'm still getting a bit used to the symbols of the game, so I'm pretty sure that was a command vehicle though. Elsewhere, they're bringing in forces to try and fight and take back the town around Michael, because it is the centre point of the map. You take the town, you pretty much can hold Michael. Also to cut their reinforcement zones and make their reinforcements times take a little bit longer, I decided to bring in my own command vehicle. Which actually brings me to another point. Command vehicles have been boosted by the addition of a new class, the command tank. So basically, it's pretty much a command vehicle, but a tank. So, more armour, so it's more resilient to artillery volleys. Has a gun, so it can do a lot of damage, but then it's also very, very expensive. I'd probably recommend it for front line points that you're going to be taking artillery fire, because artillery is so powerful in this game. But it's a sort of niche weapon. I'd say the traditional command vehicles would still be the most popular. So as you can see, the command vehicle's down. I'm just trying to finish off some of their anti-aircraft defense. Here comes a fighting Falcon. It's actually shooting at my Mi-9, and I panic quite a lot because jets are usually quite good at taking out helicopters. You can see this one's only got one sliver of health left, so I tell it to get back behind my lines. Once they lose sight on it, it's not in danger anymore. Elsewhere, I'm just trying to shell the stuff around the town to give me a bit of breathing space. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff that I've been doing, so I want to get my infantry into a good defensive position.